Happy holiday nerds, 'tis the season to watch your favorite holiday movies, but if you're someone like me, you probably prefer your Christmas movies to have a little more hacking and slashing than silver bells and mistletoes. So for today's episode of Nerd Space Horror, we'll be taking a look at all of the best Christmas horror movies of all time. But if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're a fan of horror movies. Also, if you enjoyed today's topic, then don't forget to leave a like on today's video. Anyway, my name is Ruben with Nerd Space Horror, and this is my top 10 best horror Christmas movies of all time. Let's get it. Number 10, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Honestly, the first two entries on this list are really some pretty cringy and cheesy horror movies that just hold a special place in my heart. In the case of Silent Night, Deadly Night, this movie focuses on a Santa Claus going absolutely violent in a small town and killing everybody he comes across. There's nothing really special about this movie, as we've seen more modern takes on this concept, but something about the kills in this movie and the nostalgia that I have for this film, I just had to include it on this list. Number 9, Jack Frost. The other corny movie on this list that honestly is probably viewed as a bad movie by most is Jack Frost. Again, this was a film that I just absolutely loved as a child. Thinking back on it, I'm not completely sure why though. The deaths were a bit boring, the acting was god awful, and the visuals were really bad even for its time. Yet, I still love watching Jack Frost and its sequel every single year. For those that haven't seen it, Jack Frost is basically a horror movie in which a serial killer is reborn as a killing snowman. His witty comments as he kills his victims in festive ways kind of reminds me of Chucky, just worse dialogue and acting. Either way, if you're looking for a fun and completely out of the ballpark horror movie to watch during the holidays, then I can't think of a better pick than Jack Frost. Number 8, P2. If you're looking for a horror movie that features a bit more Christmas elements to it, then P2 may not be the best option for you. Still, the unique thing about P2 is that it plays on the horrors of how being alone on Christmas for so long could ultimately lead to a psychotic break. P2 follows a workaholic woman who finds herself leaving work late on Christmas Eve to then being kidnapped by a stalker who is obsessed with her. What follows is a string of horrifying events in which this lone woman must fight for survival in an attempt to escape the parking garage before it's too late. Number 7, Better Watch Out. The less I say about this one, the better, so I'll just stick to the premise of the film and let you experience this one on your own. Ashley, a teenager, finds herself in a struggle of life and death when she accepts a babysitting job over the holidays. When intruders show up to the house to threaten her and the boy that she's babysitting, Luke, Ashley must use anything and everything at her disposal to prevent these dangerous individuals from invading the house on this very merry day. Let's just say that this holiday season for Ashley and Luke will be one to remember in this holiday movie that focuses on the worst babysitting gig ever. Number 6, Anna and the Apocalypse. Despite being a musical, Anna and the Apocalypse is a relatively decent zombie horror movie. With that being said, if you're not a fan of Broadway style movies, then I would skip this one. Anyways, the movie follows a small town that becomes overrun by zombies overnight. In an effort to reunite with their friends and family, a group of teenagers team up to battle zombies and sing catchy tunes along the way. The first half of the movie definitely feels more like a comedy film versus a horror film, but as the story continues, you'll find everything that you could possibly want from a traditional zombie flick. Gory deaths, brutal zombie kills, and even tragic moments from some of the characters that you fell in love with along the way. Only this time you'll have some songs stuck in your head long after the credits roll too. Number 5, A Christmas Horror Story. One of the better Halloween movies out there, my wife's favorite movie of all time, is Trick or Treat. It's an anthology horror film that connects multiple stories into a single movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you check it out. But the reason why I'm bringing up this is because A Christmas Horror Story kind of reminds me of Trick or Treat, but set on Christmas Eve instead. The film follows multiple stories that all take place in the small town of Bailey Downs. Like with Trick or Treat, each of these stories are standalone horror stories while also having small connections to each other. From Krampus to zombie elves, A Christmas Horror Story explores all of the darker sides of the merriest holiday of them all. Again, if you're a fan of Trick or Treat, you'll probably enjoy this movie as well. Warning though, the budget isn't as good and some of the acting is a bit rough to get through. Still, it's definitely an enjoyable horror movie to watch during the holidays. Number 4, Terrifier 3. Art the Clown has become a massive superstar as the next big slasher icon in horror movies. The brutal way he tortures and kills his victims makes other slashers like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers look like saints, honestly. And the most recent entry of the Terrifier trilogy that released earlier this year definitely doesn't hold anything back either. Although this time around, Art the Clown decides to be a bit more festive, considering that this film takes place around Christmas time. What does this mean for the killer clown? Well, it means we get kills inspired by Christmas decorations and a Santa outfit for our very own Art the Clown. Just be warned that if you're going to watch this during the holidays, that it gets pretty damn gory. Like the Saw franchise level of gore. But hey, if you're watching a video on the top 10 best Christmas horror movies, then something tells me that that's right up your alley anyway, so happy holidays. Number 3, Krampus. Breaking the top 3 is Krampus. Actually, these next 3 films are without a doubt the indisputable top 3 Christmas horror movies in my book. However, I think it's fair to say that they are definitely interchangeable depending on what floats your boat the most. Starting with Krampus, this film definitely adds a little more comedic relief to it, while also having some pretty dark and horrifying elements to it. As you know, Krampus is essentially the evil version of Santa Claus that comes to punish families that don't believe in the Christmas spirit anymore. And out of every Krampus horror movie out there, this one is by far my favorite. Not only is Krampus absolutely horrifying, but his elves and toys are terrifying as well. Actually, I want to give a big shout out to the Jack in the Box toy. Holy shit, that thing gave me nightmares when I first saw this movie. Number 2, Black Christmas. Black Christmas is a classic horror movie, and for some people, it'll rank as the number 1 entry on today's list. In fact, this movie is so good that it inspired not 1 but 2 remakes following its release. Although if I'm being honest with you, both of those movies are pretty bad and neither of them compared to the original. Anyway, Black Christmas primarily takes place in a sorority house in which a serial killer has taken up residence in. Throughout the movie, the killer calls and torments his sorority girls before brutally killing people when they least expect it. It's one of, if not the best home invasion horror movie out there, and the ambiguous side of the killer himself is without a doubt one of the best parts of this movie. This movie will literally leave you with chills as you'll find yourself checking every corner of your house before you go to sleep at night. Number 1, Gremlins. My favorite Christmas horror movie of all time is Gremlins. Yeah, I grew up with this film and it may be nostalgia talking, but I can't think of a movie that I watch more around the holiday season than Gremlins. Sure, it's not the scariest movie out there. In fact, it's kind of similar to Krampus. It has a lot of comedic elements combined with its festive horror vibes. Still, it has some pretty intense moments in it, and these ghoulish creatures definitely left me scared as a child. But I gotta say, Gizmo is the most adorable little creature I've ever seen in a movie. Seriously, I want one of them, please. Oh, and fun fact, despite this being a horror movie and having some pretty intense and dark elements to it, it's actually only rated PG. But I guess it goes to show how unfazed kids were in the 80s with horror movies. Hell, I grew up in the 90s watching films like Halloween and Child's Play, and I feel like I turned out fine, right? Oh, and one last thing, call me crazy, but does anybody else feel like Gremlins would be the perfect match for a modern remake? Hell, we can even get Steven Spielberg involved on the project again. But that does it for this episode of Nerd Space Horror. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think of my list. Is Gremlins the best Christmas horror movie of all time? Did I miss any good ones that you think should have been on my list? Let me know down below. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more horror movie content. Also hit that like button if you really enjoyed today's topic. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Horror. Take care.